what does the Bible teach about business? That's what we'll uncover together on the Business in His Image podcast. This show explores strategies from the Bible that will help you grow your business, strengthen your walk with Jesus, and help you reach your God-given potential as an entrepreneur. The Bible is filled with practical wisdom to help you live for God while using your gifts. Let's unpack what that means for you and how you can use biblical truths to build a thriving business that honors Christ. Now it's time to dive in. Have you ever felt like you are way in over your head? Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the desires and the dreams that God has put in your heart? Maybe you have felt that it was too much for you or that you just couldn't do it. Well, friend, if that's you, today's episode is going to be such an encouragement. I hope you stick around to the end. Now, all of us may find ourselves in different life situations. We all face a different set of challenges, a different form of spiritual warfare. But there's one thing that we all have in common, and that is that we all need Christ. And Christ wants to be glorified through our lives. When He accomplishes the work that He set out to do through us, He wants the glory. He wants us to acknowledge that if it were not for Him, we would not be where we are. And oftentimes, I believe that's why He allows the challenges and the difficulties that come our way. Now, there are times in my own business and my ministry where I feel completely overwhelmed. And there's been times where I have to admit, I wanted to throw in the towel. I felt like I couldn't go on. I felt like I can't do this anymore. I have too much on my plate. But when I got quiet before the Lord and I prayed about it, I knew in my heart that this is what God wants me to do. But I needed to continue to draw my strength from Him. And I noticed that in those moments when my mind and my heart is quiet and I'm still before God, it feels so much easier. But when I'm distracted, when I'm just filling myself up with entertainment or distractions and just the cares of life, that's when things feel harder than ever. But God reminded me of a verse recently, and I want to share with you because it is a simple verse and you've probably heard it many times, but I think it is such an encouragement and something that we need to be reminded of. And that is Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Him who gives me strength. If you're like me, you've probably heard this verse many times. However, when you read a Bible verse and it just hits you differently. Well, that's what happened when I read this verse. This verse says we can do all things, all the things that God has given us to do, all the responsibilities that He has entrusted to us, all the things that He has instructed us to do. We can do it through Him who gives us strength. But we need to make sure that we are continuing to draw our strength from Him, that we are spending that time in His Word, meditating upon His Word, spending time in prayer, fasting, and making that sweet fellowship with Him a priority in our lives. So friend, I just want to encourage you today that if you find yourself struggling with feeling confident in the things that God has told you to do, that you are not alone, but God will fully equip you for every good work that He wants you to accomplish. Now, on the practical side, I think that there are as well a few things that we can do to help aid this process of carrying out God's work, drawing strength from Him. There's a few things that we can do practically to make that load feel a little bit easier. Because the truth is that there are some things in the physical that do impact us in the spiritual. And at times we can lose sight of that. So number one, something that I struggle with, setting a schedule. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed because we don't have a schedule. We don't have those designated times set to accomplish the things that God wants us to do. And I will be the first to raise my hand and say that I can struggle with this at times because it can feel very difficult to set priorities. Now, when I'm talking to someone else and giving them advice, it feels so easy and simple. But when it goes to actually putting it into practice, it doesn't always feel that simple. So I am right there with you, friend. But I encourage you, and I'm speaking to myself as well, to set a schedule and create designated times to work on those things that God has given you to do. I think that it will make things feel much less overwhelming. You will be able to see maybe what needs to be cut out of your schedule. You'll be much more intentional about spending time with God. And I think it will help all of us feel a lot less overwhelmed. The second thing that we can do practically is to take care of our well-being. So basic things like making sure that we're eating enough, getting rest, taking some time to go outdoors and exercise. One of the things that I really had struggled with was making sure that I eat enough and get some exercise. what I noticed is that I would get so carried away in my work. I had very little time to work and I wanted to take advantage of every minute that I had, every free minute. And that meant putting off my meal times. But what would happen is I would find myself very irritable, hungry, feeling very weak, and getting to the point where I just didn't really have the strength to do much at all. So I knew I had to make some changes. And now I'm really prioritizing my health. I'm making sure that I set aside the time that I need to make myself meals and prioritize that so that I can be strong and healthy to carry out God's work. It may be difficult for you to put down your phone or put down your computer to prioritize those things. But the truth is that if we don't make that a priority, eventually, God forbid, we could potentially get to the point where it starts to impact our health and then we don't have a choice. So it's better to start making those life changes now so that we prioritize our health and that we don't get in our own way or get in the way of what God wants to do through us. The third thing that we can do practically is to make sure that those different buckets in our life are being filled up. So, we have a desire for community and friendship, or we have a desire to just do things that we enjoy. And it's really important to incorporate that into our everyday lives, even if it's just once a week. Make sure that you are incorporating, even if it's something small that you enjoy. Maybe it's a special coffee or a special tea or a special dessert that you really love. Or maybe you have a particular friend that you really enjoy talking to, or spending time with your spouse, whatever it is. Make sure to set time aside to do those things that you enjoy and don't get so wrapped up in, doing God's work and working on your business and all these things that you lose sight of just enjoying everyday life and those simple things. Because what happens is if we don't take time to fill up those buckets, we will feel burned out. And then we will think that God hasn't equipped us to do this work. But the truth is that we are just taking the wrong approach and we have our priorities out of order. So by doing those 3 practical things, we can position ourselves to be strengthened by God, to be in a position to be used by Him even more powerfully. So I just encourage you with that today, friend. And I leave you with that verse. Again, Philippians 4:13, I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. God bless you. Thank you for listening to the Business in His Image podcast with me, your host, Jo Harris. If this show has blessed you, please share it with a friend and subscribe so that you can be notified when we release new episodes. My prayer is that God will help you soak up every bit of what you've heard today and help you apply it to your business so that you can see results. I'll see you next time, and may God bless you.